minds, just sharpen our attention and our imagination so that maybe we could learn something new today. In Jesus' name. Amen. So, you probably figured this out by now looking at something. My name's Robert Norris. I live in Southwest Washington, and what gives me the right to be up here? I don't know. I've always lived out in the country, and I always pretty much grew up by myself, and so I was always crawling through the woods. In my youth, I hunted and trapped. I don't do that anymore. But I've always been involved with some sort of nature, outdoor education, wilderness survival, and the primitive skills, primitive native skills of various sorts. I've also been involved in our county's rescue for many, many years. Not at the current moment, but so I've been exposed to a fairly wide array of kind of the survival world, the disaster preparedness world, and the search and rescue world. So I've just started collecting these, some of these skills, some of these ideas, and hopefully it'll be of interest and help for you to just maybe tuck some things away. I'm just going to kind of skim the surface of some of this stuff. I mean, this whole idea of preparedness, disaster preparedness, can just go on for the rest of your life.
Is that the apple con? Oh, no.
Although
Yes,
I am going to fill your brain up with a lot of information.
Oh, now it is. Okay.
So, just take what you think you can glean out of it. And hopefully I want to stimulate your imagination to really grasp the possibilities. And it's the imagination that's going to keep educating you through life. Does that make sense? And so that's what I want to stimulate, your imagination, and start getting an idea of all the things that you can do if you just simply pay attention to what's going on around you. There's a verse in Proverbs, Proverbs 22:3, that says, "The prudent man sees trouble coming afar off and hides himself from it, but the fool goes on and is punished." So somebody who's not paying attention to events or dynamics of the world around them isn't going to recognize some of the things happening. And they're the ones that are going to get taken. So kind of with that in mind, we've got 3 classes. The first one I want to talk about is bug-out bags, or what FEMA calls go bags. But before we get into this, I want to kind of back up and maybe look at the forest a little bit rather than the trees. So, what are the ingredients of life? So, if we were to write this down, what's the number one thing you need to live?
Shelter.
Water. So, there's a lot of good. This is good. That's pretty much everything. If we look at it in terms of what we call the rule of threes, and this isn't hard, fast science, but it's a principle that establishes priorities. So the rule of threes go like this: you can live 3 minutes without air. After 3 minutes, things go downhill really fast. So we're going to put air up here first. That's the number one. You can live, and again, this isn't science or exact numbers, but it's going to establish a principle. You'll see what I mean. You can live about 3 hours without shelter or some sort of protection against the elements, whether it's extreme heat or extreme cold. Now, obviously, if you fall in the river, that's a different situation. But we'll put a shelter or protection from the environment, because shelter we often think of house, tent, car, vehicle, but shelter, at its most basic sense, is what you're wearing. And that's your primary shelter that you're living with. What comes next? You've got 3 minutes, 3 hours, 3 days.
Not water.
Water. You can go about 3 days without water. Now, it's not going to be a fun 3 days. But after about 3 days, significant changes happen in your physiology, in your mind, and you start making really poor decisions. Your mind starts to degrade. So 3 minutes, 3 hours, 3 days, and 3 weeks. The average American, a lot longer than that, because they're storing a whole lot of food. So, the ingredients of life. There's another thing that I want to talk about, and that is, and this is profound, if you've read stories back during World War II, or any time that life has become very, very difficult, and what we call positive mental attitudes. If you have no will to live, you can have all of these and still die. Does that make sense? The people that went through Auschwitz and some of these other, horrendous places, the people that survived did not have a profound sense of depression. They had it in their mind, I don't care what you throw at me, I'm going to live because of, and they've got a purpose. And that's what took them through. So the will to live, or at least the desire or capacity to challenge adversity, that inner fight, you need to nurture that if you don't have it. Because the alternative is what?
Death.
Dead. That don't sound fun. So, it's the old saying, when the going gets tough,
Tough, get going.
get going. That's right. So, with these factors in mind, I want to give you some things to think about. I want to go over a lot of practical, hands-on stuff that you can do, but I also want to give you some principles to think about. It's a little bit more theoretical, and that will help your imagination know what direction to go as you go through life and you learn more about this kind of thing. I want to start, though, with one axiom that's very, very important. Right? It's something that kind of gauges what I do all the time, and that is, the more you know, the less you need. What is it?
The more you know, the less you need.
Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you can pack it on your back, or you can pack it in your head. Which is easier? Put it in your head. Learn. And in my training, let me just insert this here. This is going to come more from the perspective of not necessarily wilderness survival, but I'm going to come at this whole disaster prep thing more from a community or around the home or civilization, in and around home, school, work, that sort of thing. If you want wilderness survival, well, you're going to have to take it come back. So, as you can see, not much up here is really primitive. That's a completely different thing there. So, the more you know, the less you need. But going back to the wilderness part of it, because that's where I got my start in it, goes something like this. We already mentioned you can carry it in your head or carry it on your back. I'm putting this thought together here. And that is, the more you know how to do things and many different ways of doing one particular thing, the more opportunity you'll see in life all around you. So saying that, when I train to be able to do anything I need to do with nothing but empty pockets, bare hands. So if I need to make fire, I've probably got 3 dozen ways of making fire in my head. So wherever I go, it's like, I can make fire. Shelter, water, how to deal with water. So train to the level of you don't need any tools. So pretty much you can survive with what knowledge you have in your head. And then anytime you're going through life and you find, oh wow, I've got a lighter in my pocket, all of a sudden life becomes really simple when it comes to making fire. Does that make sense? Oh, it's like, I've got a knife. Wow. Now all of a sudden, survival becomes Cadillac living. Does that make sense? If you've trained yourself out of the REI store, and you've got expensive gear, and you've got all this stuff, without it, how are you going to fare? Not well at all, because you're dependent on that little umbilical cord that connects you to some commercial institute, right? Well, let's do this. Let's cut that umbilical cord. Train to understand and know how to do what you need to do out of your head. But having said that, it's sure nice to have some tools just sitting around. So I'm not kind of poo-pooing this whole thing. But in the back of your mind, where I'd like you to go is learn. Learn to improvise and imagine and be able to do things with pretty much nothing. And that really is the essence of the more you know, the less you need. Does that make sense? Knowledge and experience weighs nothing. Backpacks do. Just remember that. So as you go through life, as we go through the class and you go about your week, I want you to look at life as kind of a game or a puzzle. Be curious. Experiment with things. And always ask why. Why are things the way they are? An example of this curiosity sort of thing. I was over at a friend's house one time, and I was sitting in the kitchen, and my wife was there, and the gentleman that occupied the house was there. There might have been somebody else there, but they were in the other room doing whatever they're doing. And as I was sitting in the kitchen, I realized it's kind of a 1950s era kitchen. And I noticed all of the knobs on the drawers and on the cabinets were kind of this polished chrome dish-shaped knobs. And immediately I saw that. I bet I can make fire from those. It was a sunny day, so they're busy in the other room. So I unscrewed, pulled one of those knobs off, and I ran out into the alley. I found some tinder, looked at aimed up at the sun, got the tinder just in a matter of seconds when it hit the focal point, got a glow in the tinder, blew it up. It's like, okay, I've got a coal right there in just a few seconds. It's like, okay, I can do this. I can make fire from this. Run back inside the house, screw the knob back on, sit down. And it's exciting to be able to realize, man, there's so many things around you that you can do that with. And it really kind of gives you fuel for your positive mental attitude. Make sense? Okay. So I've just kind of put together some notes for you guys. If anybody doesn't have the handout, it's over on the table. So let's look at these bags, the go bag consideration. Like I said, what FEMA calls go bags. The prepper community calls them bug out bags. But there's different kinds of containers that you can use in and around your house for different things, different reasons. These are just some different ideas to kind of show you some pros and cons of how you can arrange this bag of equipment concept. So backpacks, I've got a bunch of backpacks here. No, I don't take these all with me wherever I go. But it just shows you an idea. In the old days, pretty much, remember the old backpacks were an external aluminum frame, and, kind of the Pullman era, maybe 60s, whatever. Most frames, or most backpacks, as you notice today, do not have those external frames. The Alice packs, military Alice packs, still have external frames. But most of these have an internal frame or no frame at all. By internal frame, I mean somewhere in the back here. So this backpack does not have an internal frame. Sometimes there's a little zipper right up here that you can unzip. And essentially what it is a very thick piece of plastic, maybe an 8-inch thick, that is just kind of oval shaped and goes in behind the padding here. And it just kind of keeps the thing rigid. It's also a really good tool for pulling out and scooping snow, or using kind of like a rudimentary shovel. This one, like I said, doesn't have one in it, but it might have an access, a zipper on the inside. So sometimes they access the inside, sometimes they access right here. But that one does not have one. This one, I think it does. It does have an internal frame. Sometimes the internal frame is simply two aluminum, hardened aluminum strips that run inside behind the padding. Those are good for things too, like making bow drill fibers. No frame, no frame. So, anyway, I don't want to be that bad. But there's a reason why I'm talking to you about frame, and we'll get to that later. Duffel bags. Duffel bags carry a lot. I don't have one with me here, but the good thing about duffel bags is they have a handle on the side and they've got shoulder straps, so you can carry them either way. The problem with the duffel bags, though, is that it's only one open in and out. So if you've got stuff way down at the bottom, you've got to like pull everything out to get to the stuff that's at the bottom. Not really practical. However, if you were using a duffel bag to maybe store some blankets, some sleeping gear, then it'd be a nice idea. They're huge. You don't want to put something really heavy in a bigger pack. Suitcases. That's what we used to travel with, right? And if that's what you got, they're easy to get in and out of. They open up nice, but they're often quite heavy in and of themselves. So if it's something that you just want to throw in the vehicle and get out of Dodge, as it were, that's not so bad. The totes. Totes are really handy for extended gear. So something else I want to bring up is different levels of supplies. And we'll keep talking about this. So if there's one thing that I can grab, for me, it's this pack here. This I usually keep in my vehicle. It's always with me. If it's not always with me, it's sitting by the front door or back door, whatever. So this is kind of the thing that I work out of all the time, is this pack here. But if I needed some more stuff, let's say I had an extra 5 minutes to grab some things, depending on the scenario, I might grab a couple of totes that one might have cooking equipment, or one might have, more like our tents. Each one of them tends to have a little bit different gear in it. So and if it's labeled and if they're clear, that was color, but having clear totes where you can see into them and know which ones you want to grab, and they stack nicely so they're compact. They could, you know, put them in the back room or a garage. You know, it's easy to be out of the way. It's an efficient use of space, but you can just grab whatever you need and go. When I was involved in search and rescue, a lot of the guys, we had our search and rescue packs that we always had to have as a bare minimum, but a lot of guys had a whole stack of totes. So if they had the time, and depending on the mission, they would grab out a couple of the totes that they think that might be handy for that particular mission. And it was just real easy. Grab a tote, throw it in the back of the car, and go. And, you know, then fish through it later at base camp to get whatever it is you need out of it. So let's kind of go back to this pack sort of thing, because this is usually tends to be the most practical way to store and carry things, just because it's most of these are made to carry easy, and if you notice, gone from heavy to light. Comfort and fit. The one backpack that I used to use for my search and rescue, I don't have it with me, but it was actually one of the cheapest packs compared to these that I have, but it just fit me like a glove. The moment I put it on, wow, that felt really good. And even when I had it all loaded down, it just felt really good. And that makes a lot of difference. It's finding a pack that fits you. And there is a lot of adjustment in there. These shoulder straps can move up and down, and in a good backpack, you can switch it all, and you can adjust it quite a bit. There are people at maybe like Cabela's or some of these large sportsman's warehouse stores, not sportsman's. But there are people in some of the good stores that can help fit these things to your back. And so, you know, spend some time to find just that right one that just feels really good on your back. And then, you know, you can load it down and it still feels good. Speaking though of the weight issue, you want to go no more than 20 to 30% of your body's weight. So, you know, and that also depends on your fitness level. If you've got good health, good back, you know, good muscular structure, you can nudge closer to the 30%. If you're a little bit out of shape, well, you know, push it down to more of the 15 to 20% of your body weight. So you don't want to overdo it. Another way to do this is kind of put together a list of what you want to carry with you, and then find a pack to fit that, as long as it doesn't exceed the 20 to 30% of your body weight. So, you know, this is all quite flexible. Accessibility. What are you going to put in your pack? Organize it in a way that makes sense to you. For instance, in this pack, a lot of packs of this size, backpacking size, basically has two compartments. A bottom compartment, which is right here, and then the top compartment, which is all about this, right here. There is a small detachable, actually it's not detachable, but compartment here on the front. And then the lid also has is a pouch as well, and it's got an inside pocket and an outside pocket that accesses through here. So what's nice too is I believe on this bottom compartment, it also has a zipper on the floor of the top compartment, so you can get in the top compartment through the bottom as well. That's a nice feature to be able to access something without having to take everything out.
What volume is that? Do you know?
I don't know the volume of this.
Well, just when you're shopping for backpacks, you know, it's like, oh, you know, it would
Yeah,
give you an idea of
Cubic, what do they go by? They go by cubic inches.
cubic inches, okay.
And what is the standard? 1,200 to, I don't know. Now you got me thinking. I'll have to make some notes on that. As you can see, they get smaller and smaller. Right now, this is my smallest pack, and it's something that I'll just throw on when I'm going out for, just a little walk. I'm just kind of getting out of the house, maybe go down to the river, or if we go for a little day hike. What I've got in here, this one, pretty much, I'm not looking at survival mode with this thing. I've got some water and a bunch of, small food items, high-calorie food items. I do have more of that. A couple of glow sticks, I don't know, just for fun. One of these tools. And what else? Tools. We'll just skip that. And then a first aid. Actually, this is more of an advanced first aid. This has got a tourniquet and some bandaging material for a bad wound, severe wound. So I can deal with, fairly large wounds there. Other features that you will find on some different packs, if you notice, like a lot of these packs will have these straps that are sewn on, like all of this webbing that's sewed on. That is called M-O-L-L-E, mole features. And it's a way of attaching lots of other smaller pouches to your pack. And what does it stand for? Modular light loading equipment. So you can add onto these packs just all kinds of little compartments. And that's handy. It can be also, if you notice, I've used them for a number of these packs. I've got extra shoelaces, or cordage, paracord, other forms of cordage that I can use. You can never have enough good cordage. Paracord, also known as 550 cord. There's the cord. Really, really handy stuff. Another thing I want to bring up is, if you notice, most of my packs look more of the, I don't want to say military, but they have more of that blend-in color to them. And I guess that's something to think about is, if you're around people in a disaster scenario, you've got to think about what your equipment looks like. If your equipment looks like, well, let's say an REI pack, and you're wearing a Patagonia shirt or jacket, what can somebody deduce by what you're wearing? Yes, let's start it that way.
Money.
You have a lot of good stuff, and it's expensive. If you're shopping at REI, you've got money. That could be something people take note of. Okay, and I don't want them to take note of that. On the other hand, if you've got this kind of stuff, and you're wearing more of the kind of clothes that could cause you to blend in, people are going to peg you maybe as more of a prepper type. Which means you probably have weapons, which is going to make them think a little bit. But it also could mean to people who didn't plan ahead, you probably have supplies. You see what I'm saying? Is people look at other people and they size you up for potential resources. So a school backpack, just a cheap backpack, doesn't throw out those messages. So sometimes it's important to have stuff that doesn't look like you know what you're doing, or that can kind of turn you into a victim. You don't want to broadcast that kind of mentality. On the other hand, with this kind of stuff, and if you know what you're doing and you can just get out of the way, everybody's way, it's much more easy to stay invisible. You know, and that's the reason why I have these packs. I think coming at this from search and rescue standpoint, there are times where I may not want to be found or bothered by anybody. Maybe there's sometimes that I do, but I want to make that decision. I don't want to be trekking through the woods with a bright orange pack and, you know, being able to be spotted from a half mile away through the woods. So, yeah, I mean, you know, and this kind of leads into the whole concept, what we call gray man theory. And it's the idea of often in an extended disaster scenario, people do start getting desperate for food and for resources and for whatever else, you know, they might need. And so somebody that stands out, you know, think about the bumper stickers that you might have on your vehicle. It tells a lot about you. The little stick families. You ever seen the little stick families? Well, what is that telling the whole world? How many people belong to that? And if I follow that home, how many of you have seen the little stick figures? And they're just not stick figures. They're like, it's a little family of guns, or whatever it is. You know, they're broadcasting their identity. It's like, don't do that. You know, whether it's political or, you know, whatever. What you know, we all want to identify with something, and so, you know, we throw stuff over maybe. But remember, people are taking note of that, and they're forming ideas about who you are and your potential resources. And you know, I don't want to do that. So this idea of gray man is dressing as plainly as you can, no logos, no nothing on your vehicle. So you're blending yourself in with society as much as you can so that you don't become known as a potential resource. So far, so good? Does that make sense? Keep going.
That works personally just for you. Now, if I'm a search and rescue, you want to identify that you're there to
yeah, I do want to stand out.
That's why the orange, the red.
Yeah.
That's
So, for sure. You know, and it is interesting. I've never, in search and rescue, I've never had to tell a subject, we don't call them victims, we call them subjects. I've never had to tell or convince a subject that I was safe and they needed to follow me back. Because just looking at what I was carrying told them I was prepared, I have resources, and I have these resources for you. So, you know, it's just like automatic. It's like, oh good, you're here. Well, how do you know who I am? Well, it's obvious.
Believe me, it works.
What's that?
And it works.
It does. So let's go on. And all of this, I mean, some of these ideas I brought up here too. But let's move on here.
Oh, there it is over there, the clock. 9:43.
Contents. So I've got some ingredients here, just so I don't have to pull these all apart. I mean, that might be kind of fun, but it'd make a big mess. But the content of these packs is essentially, so this one, wait, here, I think that page is pretty good. So, third page, yes, I got this out of order. Content in large patrol pack. That's this one. So this is I think it's a marine patrol pack. It's way too big. I mean, there's no way that I'm going to be carrying this up the mountainside. It's just, I don't know how much it weighs, but it's probably 40, 45 pounds. I'm not carrying this anyway, except out to the car and throwing it in the trunk. But it's got a lot of stuff. You know, if I need to just like pitch it into the trunk, it does have a lot of supplies. This pack here would be the go everywhere pack. So third page back, content of patrol pack. That's this one, and the go everywhere pack is this one. Contents of small bug out. That would be this one. The small bug out bag, pretty much. And the other thing too that's really handy is when you get a pack together and just have it sitting around the house to grab and go whatever you might need. Right in the top most compartment, somewhere up here in the top, have an ingredient list as to what you have in that whole pack. I don't know how many times in search and rescue that I've been out on a mission and I'm looking for something and then I realize, oh yeah, I took that out.
In the car.
And I know that, number one, because I'm missing it. Number two, I go to my ingredient list and it's like, wait a minute, where's that thing? Periodically, I will go through my pack and make sure that my list that's in the pack matches with what's in there. Because, you know, if it goes months and months and months that I don't get into this, it's very easy to forget I've got something in there. And so I might be out, for instance, search and rescue, or just going out, you know, having a bug out weekend or whatever, and I'll go through the whole weekend wishing I had a particular thing. And then when I get back home, find it at the bottom of the pack. It's like I had that, but I forgot. So go through your pack, you know, reasonably often, so you have a working knowledge as to what's in there. Otherwise, you might have stuff in there, and you forget all about it, and it's like, man, I wish I had that. And so you scrimp through the experience, and you're carrying it with you. I don't know. And
Very
then
helpful.
back. Yes?
It's very helpful if you're in a quick rush to go on a search and you don't have a lot of time to go through and see what you got.
Throw
But
things
it's still
together.
important to have that.
You have to have it all staged. Content at the 3-day pack is this one. And I've really got things a little bit different in this pack now, so it's not necessarily what is written on there. So it's page number 2 at the top, mostly food type stuff, toilet paper. I don't have that in this pack anymore. Actually, I think my original 3-day pack was exactly like this, but it was green, kind of like this one. Right now, this pack has more, it's got rain gear and what? So that's rain gear and some medical. So I've got a first aid kit and some gauze and some stuff like that. So a little bit of medical and rain gear, which again, I live in Southwest Washington and it rains all the time. So having dedicated rain gear is really nice. We have search and rescue pack. That maybe nothing that you're going to necessarily be interested in. But, and then I've included another one. So there's a fellow that, family member that spent 20 years on the road. And essentially 20 years in survival. So it's like, hey, write me a list of what you keep in your pack. One of the biggest things that he would tell me is don't buy packs with zippers. Well, I'm not as hard on stuff as he was, but he would never have packs with zippers. So he always used the Alice, the old Army Alice packs, because they don't have zippers on them. But this little list is what he carried, and he lived like that for 20 years of his life, just with that stuff in his pack. So I included that as well. So from large to small, there's another thing I want to kind of stimulate your imagination on, and that is my boots. In some way, my boots also are a pack. In that, let's see if I can get this closer to you. Tied into my boot laces is a little ferrocerium rod, so a flint, a fire starter. It weighs nothing, and when I thread it into my boot laces, I can't feel it's there. I don't know it's there, but it's just tucked in there, and it just sits off to the side. And it's always there. You can also put another one on your keychain. So it's like, it's always with you if you've got your vehicle. And then, so that's the rod. It's got magnesium, and then it's got the striking ferrocerium rod. And then, those always come with a little metal scraper. I don't know if you've seen these little flint and steel striker rods. And it always comes with, if you pay attention, all it is a piece of hacksaw blade that they've cut off and they've ground the teeth off of. And that's the scraper for creating the sparks. Well, that thing is taped to the bottom of the sole, right, in the bridge of my foot. So I can't feel that it's there at all. Again, it adds no weight to my shoes. And the other thing that I did to this scraper for the flint and steel, you can't see it, and I don't necessarily want to pull it off, but I do want to draw this. So normally it's just a strip of metal with a hole in the end, and like I said, all it is a glorified piece of hacksaw blade that they've cut off and ground the little teeth off of. But what I did with mine was I took it to the grinder and I shaped it, and I put a really sharp edge on the back side of it. So I've got a knife on this side that's fairly sharp, and then this flat edge here is the edge to scrape and make the fire. So I've got a fire starter and a little blade, of a knife that I can use as well. And it's just tucked into my boot. I don't have to think about grabbing it because it's always part of my shoe, and it's always there. The other thing that I have tucked in here, just for fun, is, and it's hard to see, but between the tongue And the flap that has my shoelaces down in here, okay, maybe I can actually pull it out, is a little package. And normally this has a little, I've got a little folded cardboard like, like breakfast cereal cardboard folded on either side of this. It's a little pack of hooks, fish hooks. And then on the other insole, I've got 20 or 30 feet of fishing line wrapped up, and then taped to the arch of my sole. Again, you can't feel it, you can't tell it's there, but it's just this little tiny bit of supply. It's always there. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to grab something going out. It's just always there. Now, you do want to think about it. Remember, it's going through TSA. I'm going to take that off. But other than that, it's something that's always with me if I'm wearing my boots. So that's also something to think about is, these different places we can put things. I drove off and I think I forgot my wallet, but I keep things in my wallet as well. And we'll get to that later when we're talking about fire.